What is going on, blockheads? We are doing a little bit more of a roundup today. So we've already taken a look at some of these things that came out of a shoebox, but I think today we'll look at some of the stuff that pertains to the instructions for them, and I think we'll get some more cleanup done with some of these. So we discovered that these were Star Wars related. So what we're going to do, we're going to put Star Wars stuff with Star Wars stuff. So for the meantime, let's put these on the shelf. So we found out that this was definitely Naboo swamp related. And then we had something on Tatooine with, I couldn't remember if that was Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon. And then, of course, we got an ATST. So we now have some Star Wars stuff all next to each other. And then we had some instructions left here in this other shoebox, and we didn't quite get through all of these. So let's find some of the ones that we haven't done yet, and then get them a little more organized. So here was our ambulance, which is, of course, over there. And then this was the one I think was the wave skimmer, until I find a more accurate name. Here was the street sweeper. And then this is a pile that we already went through, and we found some inserts. Let's get these out of the way. So here's what we have left. So let me get a little more elevation here, not to be quite so hunched over. So this was interesting. This is a different style they did early on. It's kind of like they had the set, and it was almost like a full sheet, and they started doing the minifigs on the front. But of course, that didn't last because everything nowadays has just the cover art. But given the number of minifigs in certain sets, they probably didn't stick with that formula. So there's Space Police number 1, and then Space Police number 2. Ooh, this is interesting. So we're getting into some stuff that may or may not be part of the shoebox set, but this was definitely a favorite. This goes way back. So as you can see, they got the minifig thing on the front, and you know what's crazy? It was so easy to lose these little feathers. So we'll have to eventually revisit and see what's still available. So I believe this was the Forestman's hideout. Canopy that opened, the whole thing folded in half, had these really awesome shields with the antlers. Very Robin Hood-esque, target practice, barrel, some gold, giant plastic tree, of course. So we got another insert here. More promo stuff for the Lego Club. That's pretty irrelevant, not even all that interesting. More promo stuff. Meh. All right, so here we go. Here's some of the other Star Wars stuff that was still assembled, I think. No, I can't tell. Promo. Yep, we got more than one of those, so that's promo. Promo, 2000. Oh yeah, this is all promotional material. All right, we're done with that. So let's go take a look here at some of the stuff in the Hershey's box. So this is a little bit more interesting, or perhaps older in nature. And I don't really have a crazy story on the box here, because this was just a very convenient size shape to put instructions in. And at some point, my school decided to do one of these fundraisers, and somehow I still had the box left over. So I don't really have too much to say about that. So we already established that was probably a poster, and we did show the Naboo swamp stuff already, which we just moved over to the shelf. We also moved the lightsaber duel. So I guess maybe we'll take one, let's take this loose stuff. So we'll save the rubber band stuff for later. And what I remembered since last work on this, that I probably grouped these all together by shape and fold. So I didn't group it by type, because obviously you got space here, and then a castle one in the back. So I think I did it all based on the size of the instructions. So this here has got a mixture. We found some M-Tron stuff and town or city. I think they eventually got away from town and called it city instead. Then we got a mixture of things here. I don't know what this back one is. I guess that, that might be an astronaut one. Yeah, it's probably the space, like the town version of the space shuttle. So we'll get to that later. So let's look at, I think we'll spend today looking at some loose pieces here. And these look like they are not rubber banded together once they got past a certain size. So we're going to actually go through some of this, and we're going to check out the ones here in the box. So here we've got Ewok Attack. So I think the reason I picked this up was likely because the Scout Speeder is probably a little bit more of a refined version, and probably wasn't too bad of a deal to have a couple extra Ewoks. I don't know where these guys are, but good chance that they're probably assembled in the collection somewhere. So we got this one is actually one I had to unfold is actually folded in half. So here is our TIE fighter that we looked at the other day. As you can see, it came with a stormtrooper and the pilot. And actually, just realized there is the stand in the background that supports the thing. Of course, they don't use that in the pictures, but with a design like this, it would be standing on the wings otherwise without it. So we do know at least where that is. We've run across that one so far. Oh, who's that? It looks like Emperor Palpatine, of course, with his red guard. There's the Imperial shuttle, and have verified that is actually still intact as well. Must not have seen any benefit to taking that apart, so of course that is still intact. And we'll get to that one at some point. So here is another lightsaber duel. So because we had a couple of these, evaporation moisture farming apparatus things, since there's a couple of those, I guess it's no surprise that we're going to find another one of these in here. So this is the Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. Is it Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon? Kind of seeing a beard there, unless he's got the hair dangle thing. Oh, it's mustache. It's got to be Qui-Gon. So also, here we go. We got Jedi Defense 2. And it's kind of neat that they had the red battle droid and also the yellow one, so it gives a little more variety than just the run-of-the-mill battle droid. I'm not too concerned about the bulkhead door or anything, but at least it's of value for both the battle droids and having Qui-Gon. Here we go. So speeder bikes, we've kind of run across this before, so that means some of these are assembled out there somewhere, and I think we were looking at a box for one of these previously. And this comes as no surprise. We just looked at the Ziploc bag containing this guy. So this is the Imperial AT-ST with Chewbacca. And yeah, this original design, not super stellar, but it was probably the first one. So it seemed like that probably would have had some appeal to finally have AT-ST Lego set. But of course, it is coming with the originals based on that logo. So here's another interesting one. So the original Slave One. So admittedly, I was not an early adopter to Boba Fett fandom. When I was a child, I didn't know what the appeal was, but as a teenager, I had friends like, oh yeah, Boba Fett's so cool. So I eventually came to understand that Boba Fett is pretty awesome. Now this version of Slave One, not super fantastic. I mean, really the only redeeming factor is probably the original Boba Fett with Han Solo and Carbonite. But beyond that, probably the newer Slave One's much likely better designed. But so beyond it being an original, not anything super sentimental there. So here we go. Here's the original Snow Speeder, and of course, a little dude there with a antenna. Also, this is not a very efficient design. They've made them much lighter and perhaps it's a little bit more accurate. But again, it's an original. I probably had this as one of my original display pieces. So this was a good start. This one wasn't the best, wasn't the worst of the designs. So this one was pretty cool. Here's an interesting and fun one. We've got the battle droid carrier. So if you were really looking to beef up your battle droid collection, this would have been the way to go, because you've got probably a dozen or maybe a baker's dozen worth of battle droids in here, and this would have been, somewhere between a small to medium-sized set. So for the price, you're getting a lot of battle droids. So in case anybody wanted the episode 1, landscape, that would have been the way to do it. So this is likely one of my favorites of the episode 1 era. So I don't remember if they made any more interesting versions to this, because I'm kind of surprised that I wasn't able to find a set of these in triplicate or something. So what might have happened is the newer versions may not have been as appealing, because I know some had like blue trim, which was completely inaccurate. So this one was pretty accurate to the color scheme, even if it had been a little bit more blocky. But I do feel that, other than the goofy thing they did with the droids and the blasters of that era, this model seemed like aesthetically it was pretty solid. And now we're deviating from Star Wars here a bit. So check this out. We got a pizzeria. Totally not Star Wars. So I've kind of mentioned stuff about the castle stuff, and I didn't get into that right away. And this may have been before or after Castle. Highly likely that was after. But because I was already so heavily invested in town stuff, I probably really took interest in some of these because they just made common sense for everyday real life kind of stuff that might eventually make for a good town scene. So who knows what I was thinking, late child, early teenager there. This one's a little unusual. So if I had to guess, this probably came out of a secondhand set. So it looks like on the back of it, this pertains to one of the battery boxes with the lights. And I think these things ran off of 2C batteries. And really, most of these designs, or at least the initial design here, is pretty blocky. So that's not something I would have intentionally wanted to build, nor would it have been something I would have purchased or asked for. So I think this was a secondhand item. And here we go. This is back to Castle. This came about, I think, after your initial run of the two different kinds of castle soldiers. You had the guys with the falcons versus the lions. And then this is different altogether because they started getting dragons and griffins. And I think they went a little bit more of the Viking approach, even though you had some of these guys here with the falcons on the shield. They started mixing the helmets up. The guys with the falcons usually had a black helmet. So the fact they're mixing and matching was a little different. And these guys got the crossbows and a little bit more of the Viking ship. So, yeah, they started changing things up there. And definitely was a little bit newer because, again, the system logo they had going on there. So we're all over the place in this pile. So this is a pirate raft. I don't remember the exact name. There's one called Castaway's Raft. I think that was the original. This has got to be like at least the third wave in, because I think Castaway's Raft was out of second wave. And this one I can also tell is newer because Redbeard originally had a black outfit. So they were totally changing things up by the time they got to this to make some, mid-range sets with a bunch of cool things in it. Because you got Redbeard, you got the chest, shark, and even a peg leg guy. So they had to start mixing some variety in. And originally the pirate sets just had the 4 large ones, so it's difficult to get some of the cool things that people really wanted in those older sets. And here's another interesting one. So this one was apparently part of a value pack. Let me take a look at the back here. So it looks like all the instructions were in the same one. This one had some pretty sizable value to it. I mean, the racer not all that big of a deal, other than unless you're looking for another race car. The cool stuff here is actually coming from the others. Now, here is one of the newer versions of the Blacktron. And then this is also the era in which they started to get into the glow-in-the-dark stuff with the ghosts. I don't know if there was many other things they did after that. They probably did, but I was only aware of the ghosts for the glow-in-the-dark. Even this little pirate set is pretty solid because you get a palm tree, a monkey. Some of those pieces were pretty awesome. So there's a lot of good stuff in here, even for being, I'd say it's probably about the size of a mid-range set by having 4 different items in there. And here we go, testing my knowledge on this one. So this is a newer version of the Space Police. So if I recall, the order of the space stuff, after they got past the basic stuff, it went from Futron to Blacktron, Space Police, then I think they did Mtron, and then Blacktron, the second version, and then Space Police, the second version. So the original Space Police stuff, which we looked at, was all in the blue and red and black. This was all about the green and red and gray and black. So they completely changed the theme up. Now, the thing is, it still has a different version of the cell, but they had the way to transport prisoners and have a way to remove the cell. So they still kept some of the concepts, but completely went with a different theme on these. So I don't know that I had too many of these. I don't think this color style was nearly as appealing as the original. So I think maybe got a couple for interest's sake, but probably like the other series, 1 or 2 was probably enough, and the big ones weren't all that appealing, or maybe parents weren't interested. I couldn't tell you the reason. So back to pirates again. So after they started doing their initial run of pirates, they started mixing it up by bringing in natives, which they referred to as islanders. So this is actually pretty neat. They got into the canoes, the pontoons, catamarans, whatever you want to say for the boat. So I would definitely say this is what, maybe Polynesian, Southeast Asian, perhaps, maybe South American. Hard for me to say. But this was a neat set. I mean, you got a pretty decorative headpiece on the chief there. You got a couple parrots. And one of the things I really liked was the fact that we got the crocodiles in there. Those were really neat pieces when they started making those. So that's pretty cool. All right, so this one's going to be an interesting one that we'll end on here. So this, I know for fact, was a second-hand set, and I'll tell you a little bit of story about that one. So my dad was pretty solid at going to garage sales, and he one time brought home this large white plastic pail. It essentially looked like a miniature garbage can with a lid on it, and it was full Legos, and he, I believe, saw it for $15, and he talked the guy down to $8. So this pail was full of Legos, and it even included this set and one of the original Blacktron sets, which I didn't have. So this is a pretty solid ship. I mean, I think it's even got this detachable compartment in the back. I mean, a lot of this stuff is probably pretty well scratched up, as I'm sure a lot of my stuff is nowadays when it comes to the windshields and stuff, because that stuff doesn't age super well. But there is also a special story in the future, which we'll get to, about this cool little blue piece on here. So I'll save that for another time. But yeah, we've got a lot of instructions to go through here, and maybe we'll break this up a little bit. But I hope you enjoy getting to see a snapshot of some of the crazy stuff throughout this collection out here. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll get into some more here in a little bit.